Rich Paul fires back at allegations that LeBron cherry-picked teammates in order to get a championship, something Michael Jordan never did. What does this mean for the Jordan-LeBron debate? Well, Rich Paul weighs in with his thoughts on the topic. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well. Joined by Donnie Freeman. Donnie, always nice when you get to hear directly from Rich Paul on this topic, somebody who is closer to LeBron than anybody else.
What are you trying to say, Trev? You think he's biased or what? Like, what are you trying to say?
No, well, of course he's biased. Yeah, he absolutely
is. He?
Of course he's going to be biased. But I just mean, actually getting somebody who knows LeBron and to talk to him, because everybody talks about Jordan versus LeBron. Now we're getting Rich Paul weighing in, and he's responding specifically because Michael Jordan's agent weighed in on the topic and had some nice things to say about LeBron James.
Yeah, it's always nice because it feels like a lot of times people talk about LeBron or talk for LeBron, kind of put words in his mouth. But I think in this case, Rich, as you were saying, knows him better than basically anybody else. So he probably can weigh in a meaningful way and maybe provide some good insight. And again, just want to elaborate that the information is coming from Jordan's agent as well. So like the exact same situation.
Yes. So. Yeah. So agents firing back about their two superstar clients. So here we've got Rich Paul. He's on the Rich Eisen show. And here's what Rich Paul had to say.
David Falk said something the other day about LeBron cherry picking, and they was talking about it this morning. And I'm like, that's interesting to use the term cherry picking when, if we're going to make a fruit basket here, maybe I'll sing you one after I leave for having me on the show.
Thank you, Rich.
But the careers of the LeBron and Michael Jordan, it's not apples and apples for a number of reasons. But the cherry picking terminology of it all, coming from someone who literally had John Thompson, Dean Smith, and Mike Krzyzewski supporting his business, putting superstar athletes in his lap.
Oh, wow.
Right.
I think he was part of the Cherry clan. I used to sell, my dad used to sell that candy.
So first of all,
sounds like collusion right there. What
right. That's what he said. He's like, you're accusing LeBron of cherry picking superstar teammates, and you've had all these superstars just handed to you for you. So Rich Paul takes a little shot here at David Falk, who's the longtime agent here of Michael Jordan. But I also like that he said, we're not comparing apples to apples. And that's it exactly. Like when we're talking about comparing stars from different eras, you're not comparing apples to apples. Like people always get into if you put this guy in today's game, he wouldn't be as good. That doesn't matter. That's not the game that they played at the time. The rules have changed. The style has changed. Everything has changed. You're not comparing apples to apples. The environment has completely changed. When you look at the media environment, you look at everything about the way the game is today compared to the way it was, say, 20 years ago. It's so different now. So you're absolutely not comparing apples to apples.
No, you really just can't compare most of it at all. Like whether it's the game itself, when you're talking about pace of play, possessions, all these different things, the rule changes, like you mentioned, the way defense is allowed to be out there and play and all that stuff. It's pretty refreshing the way that the playoffs have been defensively as well.
Yeah.
They're letting them be a lot more physical, very reminiscent of the older days, right? But there's just more offensive pop in the game today as well. So it's really hard to compare.
This is a total tangent here, but just as a quick side note, it's funny, I think, Donnie, really hilarious. How many people are complaining about the Thunder getting away with being too physical? Well, the whole playoffs, everybody's been praising how physical the playoffs have been. Like, it's like, what do we want here? We want this very fine line of we want a certain amount of physicality, but not too much physicality. Or if it's a team that we don't like being allowed to get away with physicality, then it's not okay. But for everybody else, it's okay. It just, to me, it's crazy. I think ultimately people want to see consistent officiating, and I'm with them on that. But it's just we draw this very fine line for how physical we want things to be and how far is too far. And then there's always something to complain about.
Absolutely. On that really quick, I saw a fan of the Wolves, of course, elaborate on what the disdain is there. And basically the thought process from them was, firstly, Caruso and Dort, he singled them out, and they do play very physically. They're allowed to play old school defense, but then on the other side, you can't touch Shea. So that's where the disdain is that they allow for the Thunder guys, supposedly anyway.
And I get it.
Play a certain way. Like it's almost like they're allowed to play a different sport almost, but then it doesn't go the other way too. So that's back on the consistency piece of it. I don't have an opinion on all of that. I do think the Thunder are extremely physical, and they deploy, maybe that's to their point. They deploy a bunch of small guys so they can be more physical. Maybe it's not as bad as it would be if they were all 6'10" guys being super physical, but it is what it is.
There is a size advantage in the NBA, and it's not big greater than small. It's the other way around. It is the small players can get away with a lot more than the big players, for sure. All right, let's go back here to Rich Paul, though.
Andy, back in the day, I just thought that was very unfair and a little beneath David Falk for a number of reasons. And so we can't have revisionist history, and we all want to just determine who's the GOAT and who's the best and so on and so forth. But I just thought that was a little beneath David to say that, and I'll table that there. But,
well, we were going to bring that up, and for those who might not know what Rich is referring to, is a Sports Business Journal quote from the longtime agent of Jordan saying, "I really liked LeBron, but I think if Jordan had cherry picked what teams he wanted to be on and 2 other superstars, he would have won 15 championships."
And again, when you look at that, right? Again, the cherry pick
15. Oof.
I've discussed it.
Right. I mean, obviously he's exaggerating, right?
Yeah, but still, yeah.
Still.
That the 2 other superstars, Michael never had to leave. Michael's never been the underdog in any finals. Not one time. Michael never had a 24-hour, 365 news cycle. He never had shows built strictly to criticize him. People made millions of dollars criticizing LeBron James. That was their entire job. And when you talk about the difficulty of it all, Michael played for Dean Smith, Michael played for Phil Jackson, and Michael had Jerry Krause. I'm the biggest Michael Jordan fan ever. I love Michael Jordan. And I don't think Michael Jordan would have used the term cherry pick. So I'm not up here to discredit Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan transcended our game to a level that we all benefited from, right? And I'm more so focused on less about who's the GOAT and why I can't be at a dinner with those 2 guys having a great conversation, or why I can't put, a little bit of the money that I've earned into a fund that those 2 guys have formulated so we can be a part of the deal flow from the Blackstones and the Apollos and the Andreessen Horowitz and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those type of comments is also the reason why people that look like me in my community always think there can only be one king. And it's forever embedded us as the minority in a lot of places, and why it's so uncommon to see a community of successful Black men. So I thought that was very, again, beneath David Falk with all the success he's had and all the cherry picking that he's been able to do amongst the 3 highest level universities there could ever be as it pertains to aligning with the game of basketball. It doesn't get any bigger than Georgetown, North Carolina, and Duke. So he actually has a bag of cherries, so I'll leave that there, though.
Rich Paul here on the Rich Eisen Show.
He actually has a bag of cherries. I love that. I had to let that go until that point. I love that. He has a bag of cherries.
He's crazy for that. Yeah, absolutely going back and taking another shot at him. Yeah, I think that's all really interesting. So I guess by definition of the term, I don't fault the, he cherry picked teammates thing, because LeBron did decide where he wanted to go. That was perfectly fair for him to do. He played out his contract.
Mm-hmm.
He made it a point. Like, he's allowed to do that, right? But I don't really have much of a problem with that. I think that where it's the problem is that you're trying to compare across. And like we talked about earlier, I just don't think that you can do that. If you're going to just compare accolades, then you're going to say this accolade, I'm going to say that accolade, you're going to say this accolade, and we could just go back and forth for forever on this topic, which is why I think it's all really stupid. Like we were talking about off camera, I don't think that you're going to change anybody's opinion as to who they think it's the GOAT, whether it's these two or otherwise. Some people will say Kareem, some people will say Steph or Kobe, some people will say a bunch of people. It doesn't really change. But I think Rich was spot on where he said, why can't there just be GOATs? Multiple. Like, why can't there be multiple, right? Like, what? That's the way I think about it, is that these guys are the greatest guys ever. And there's a couple other guys in that, like I said, but these are the best players ever. Why can't we just celebrate all of them? Why does there have to be one person at the top, period? Whether it's LeBron or Jordan, it doesn't matter.
And that's just it, Donnie. That's my problem with all of this stuff, with all of this who's the greatest, with LeBron versus Steph, with whatever player you want to put in head to head. It's that until it's too late, we wind up not appreciating a lot of players because we wind up falling on one side or another, because we're so determined to prove that this guy is better than this guy. It devolves into taking the guy that we don't think is as good and knocking them down a peg or two, talking negatively about that play. These are great players, all-time great players, and we spend so much time hating on these players because we want, no, I want my guy to be recognized as the best, so I need to tear down everybody else around him instead of just appreciating all these incredible players. And again, it's after the fact. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, the people that hate LeBron, I promise you, most of them are going to be like, God, but he was really good. Man, he was amazing. He could do this, this, and this. And we're not taking the time to appreciate that. And the same is true of Steph. The same is true of KD, of all these other incredible all-time great players. We spend so much time arguing and debating over who's better, when guess what? It really doesn't matter. The important thing is that they're all great. They're all helping the game, and we can enjoy the skill and the talent that they bring without having to just tear down everybody else. And that's what these greatest of all time, greatest whatever conversations always devolve into. And it drives me crazy. It devolves to tearing down the accomplishments of a player rather than celebrating the amazing things that these guys do.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that's largely just, we've talked about it a few times, just the culture around sports media, the NBA itself, like all of that. And then also that's turned into the social media culture too, where it's just all around. It's all negativity. We've got to tear so-and-so down. And in order to be XYZ, you need to have done this, that, and the third. You also can't, talk about so-and-so without first crediting or talking about this other player. Like, there's so many different layers to it.
It's the man, I really love waffles. Why do you hate pancakes of it all, right? Like
that's actually like super prevalent in all of this. But I think above all else, like the way that the sports shows just completely drove this home for like 10 to plus years, really just kind of set this all up. LeBron's interesting. He came in with so much expectation that he was almost set up to fail, I think, from that standpoint. It's just that there was so much expectation for him from literally day one, to come in as the heir apparent and all these other things. And whether you think he lived up to that or didn't live up to that hype or whatever the case is, I think for him specifically, I think, like Jordan got to a point where like he overcame certain trials that he had in terms of like what teams were in his way. Some of that's, some of these guys just kind of aged out or whatever, but ultimately he got there and was able to win, 6 chips. You can't take that from him. I think for LeBron though, I think that due to expectation, I think he was looking at it like, these guys don't want to give me help and I've got to start winning now. Like these guys start getting like 27, 28 and they're like, we got to start winning. Like I can't go much longer. And I think he kind of looked at it that way. And honestly, while he won a couple in Miami on that topic, I actually think that, not that it backfired because he did win 2 chips, but it was very short-lived. Firstly, he was only there for 4 years. And secondly, those guys like really deteriorated towards like Wade specifically just was a shell of himself. Now, when they first paired together, that was entirely different, but that run just did not last very long, particularly for Wade. His knees gave out badly. And it devolved into LeBron needing to be what LeBron has been for most of his career, which is the entire team. Now that doesn't mean other guys don't make shots, that or whatever, but it devolved into the same thing that he was kind of trying to get away from. So.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny is LeBron's actually been a Laker for more consecutive years
Right.
than anywhere else. But if he stays with the Lakers this summer, which he's expected to, he
The
will have
longest
been
stint
a
of his
Laker
career.
for the longest stint of his career than anyone, even including Cleveland, which is
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. But LeBron actually talked about this the other day with Steve Nash on Mind the Game. And Nash kind of brought up, said, I know a lot of players from my generation are critical of the game. I watch these playoffs and I love it. I love the NBA. I love the little battles, the chess matches, the randomness. To me, the game's in a beautiful place. And LeBron said, and I loved it growing up. I loved watching the older generation. He said, sometimes the older generation makes you not want to love the game you grew up watching. Like I grew up loving the Knicks versus Bulls playoff series, Pacers versus Knicks. I love that. And even though I never saw MJ live, I'm from a small town outside of Cleveland. When the Cavs got a chance to play up, that was exciting. So part of why you've got the older generation tearing down the current generation? Well, one reason is that you've got, again, we're not comparing apples to apples, and that's the assumption. They see something that doesn't look like the game they played, and so they automatically say negative things about it and go to a negative place. But also, negativity is what gets you out there, right? There's a lot of athlete podcasts now and stuff like that. If you get out there and former player X trashes LeBron James or whatever, that has a much, 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 much higher chance of going viral and getting out there than former player X talks about how great LeBron is.
Yeah, no, not even close. Like, just something about negativity elicits a certain response in people, good and bad. And the good news is that people, if you don't know, all engagement is good engagement. Like on any platform, whether you're trying to comment on this thing or that, to say, oh, you're stupid, I hate your take, all engagement is good engagement. Like that's the thing. That's why it lives in like all these sports shows and online, anything that these guys
like
say.
this video is what Donnie's saying.
Exactly. Or dislike it. All engagement's good engagement. Don't dislike it. But if you're 17 minutes in, you can do whatever you want. But anyway,
you're a real one.
That for sure, we appreciate you. But like that's kind of where this all kind of comes from. And LeBron actually grew up idolizing Jordan. He did. Like most other people that grew up in that time period did. He was a huge fan of Kobe as well, prior to getting drafted. For LeBron. So like it's just weird when you see the constant shot taking between eras, and this era is kind of starting to get a little bit tired of it. They're kind of like starting to go back and this and that. I just wish more people honestly were like LeBron, where he's showing love no matter what, like across the board. Like every now and again he'll say something about the older guys. I think some of that's just, like I said, he's just taking a shot back,
returning fire.
Like, I think that's fair, but he's always showing love. Like he was, even after they lost to the Timberwolves, he's telling Ant, hey, take it to the next level. Like just keep on going. He's showing love across the WNBA. Super controversial, by the way, that he was showing love to Caitlin Clark.
What? No, that's not controversial.
People didn't realize he's shown love to people like Asia and all these other people, but whatever. Anyway, he's always doing that. So I just wish there was more people in the NBA media, all the stuff that we're doing that. So, but yeah, it's just constant. I want to ask you this. How do you think that this will all look 10 to 15 years from now? Like, how will history remember this era, the era prior, like Jordan's era, all that stuff? Do you think we'll still be doing this GOAT debate stuff? And why would it be that KD is the GOAT?
I do think that what tends to happen is nostalgia sets in. We tend to remember things favorably. Why people said, they complain about 3-point shots today, and they wax poetic over the beauty of a contested 15-foot.
Wait till we're taking 500 3-point shot game.
That's right. Wait till you're shooting them from 50 feet every game. No, but I do think that looking back, there's going to be a lot of regret. There's going to be a lot of people who say, I spent so much time hating player X, Y, or Z, but that guy was really good. This guy was awesome. Now, the same token, though, I think they're going to be doing the same thing for players from that era. It changes so much when player X is not kicking your team's ass or is not competing against your player anymore. Then people can look back and be a little bit more let's say open-minded about the way that they're actually perceiving what's happening, right? Because they already know the result. There's no competition there. We know what happened, and you can look back and say, oh yeah, that was actually really awesome. That guy was really amazing. He did this, and this. But when you're in it in the moment and you've picked the side and you've drawn that battle line, that's where people get lost in all of that. Whether you're a previous generation player that's trying to knock down the players from today, whether you're a fan of a particular player, whether you're a fan of a particular team, that kind of thinking often causes you to miss some of the things that are sitting right in front of you.
I saw that happen in real time with Kobe, actually.
Sure.
I see Kobe ranked so much higher, more consistently now by a lot of people than they did when he was playing. And I just think that people remember things fondly. It's unfortunate that he left when he did. And that also maybe has an element to it potentially. But yeah, I see it in real time with him where he's, I think, more appreciated now that he's no longer playing and, doing the things that he was doing to other teams. So yeah, exactly. I'm for sure, I'm in agreement that that's going to happen with these guys playing now. I joked about KD. I think history is going to be very kind to KD, ironically. Like when we move on a little bit past the storylines around him cherry picking, to use a term from today's video.
Oh, sure.
His destination and stuff, I think they're going to look back at it and say, he was the champion. He was the finals MVP. I mean,
people will be talking about how smooth he was as a scorer and his unbelievable ability to shoot and all.
They're going to say he should have won more. He should have never left goals. I think
I don't think anybody's going to call KD the GOAT.
No.
But they're going to, yes, but they will remember him more fondly than the way things are right now.
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, in conclusion, the GOAT debate is stupid. There can be multiple players that are of the same tier, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to only be LeBron, Jordan, whoever else. You don't have to argue with each other about it. If you have a GOAT, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. That's your opinion. And you're completely free to have that, of course. But just know that it's not that deep, especially when it starts getting problematic online. People start really getting engaged.
They start really getting into it. Like, look, you're probably not going to change anybody's mind. You're probably not going to win an argument. And typically what it just devolves into is name calling and dumb stuff. Just enjoy basketball. Basketball's great. Enjoy it. Have fun with it.
Did we win this argument today? I think we did.
I think so. We won.
I think we did.
We won. Quick, take a victory lap. That's what the internet says supposed to do. All right, everybody. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Until next time, see you and stay safe.